This home is at the center of a spine-tingling mystery.
657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey.
From someone who called themselves the Watcher.
New threat from the stalker known as the Watcher.
3 years in, the police don't seem to have a clue. Who's sending?
Never moving in after getting frightening letters from someone calling themselves the Watcher.
The house with the young blood I requested. Those chilling questions allegedly arrived at this Westfield house.
And it's creepy and it's weird that they never found out who it was. So they could be watching us now.
Venture into the shadows with hosts Jordan and Ashley as they peel back the veil to reveal in-depth images into a different realm. One of strange events, places, occurrences, phenomena, and sometimes even horror. Join them as they journey through the spooky door.
All right. And welcome to the Murder Basement. This is our
basement where we murder people.
So
just kidding.
We haven't done an issue. We haven't done an episode in a while because of we've both been moving and all kinds of crazy stuff been going on. So this is our new studio. We are in the basement of a house built in 1920.
I feel like it's very fitting. Did you say you think it used to be like a coal room?
Yeah, we think this used to be the coal storage room. And of course, I was like, hey, this room is super creepy. We should turn it into a studio. Is that how
I feel like I'm in like the intro of like Tales from the Crypt when like the camera, travels into like the basement and then he like pops out of the coffin.
Right.
That's where I feel like I'm at right now.
There's some graffiti on the wall over there. It's perfect for us, right?
I feel like I'm going to walk over to this side of the basement and there's going to be like dead bodies and coffins and all kinds of things. Maybe there is, though. You guys can't see it.
By the way, hopefully this episode comes out around. Should make it by Halloween, but if it's not, it's going to be a happy Halloween or happy post-Halloween.
Either way, happy Halloween.
Right. So the Watcher. We're going to be talking about that.
The Watcher. And for clarification, we'll be like mentioning and comparing probably to the show itself, but we're talking about like
mainly the case itself, not so much about the Netflix
true
show.
Story, and speculations of what's going on.
Right. So, if you haven't pieced it all together from the intro and from everything else in Netflix and all the stuff that's going on about it, a real quick rundown. In 2015, the Broadduses, is that how you pronounce it?
The
Broadduses family bought a house in Westfield, New Jersey for, how much was it? It was like 1 point.
I don't know. Does it really matter?
Yeah, it was some astronomical amount.
Ridiculous
amount of
money.
Six-room house, whatever. While they start renovating it, they start getting letters from someone who called themselves the Watcher. They never actually moved into the house. That's one thing that people, especially the show itself, they moved into the house. And in real life, they never actually moved into it. They're renovating it. And they kept receiving these letters from someone who kept calling themselves the Watcher.
Yes. And they were creepy. Jordan's going to read. Which is this that we found? Is it?
This is the very first one.
Very first letter.
Because it is still an open case, most of the full documented letters were never actually released to the public. The first one was.
You should read it in a creepy voice.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now and has a...
You got it, man.
The subject of my family for decades now, and as it approached its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s, and now it is my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it's supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. The Watcher. So, I don't even know if that was the full...
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, because I don't know, because that It's really hard. It was really hard to find, even though I scoured Reddit and I couldn't even find full length like issues of the letters. I'm not sure with the show too. I'm not sure if they use the full length letters or not. But it does later on mention like the kids, and then it starts mentioning
the young blood.
That's it, young blood.
Young blood.
Yeah, it talks about
which
the young
is
blood.
incredibly creepy way of wording it.
Yeah, and because you're gonna fill the house with young blood. Will they sleep in? It talks about them sleeping in the attic or in the basement. How
no one can hear you scream from the basement.
Yes.
They mentioned that in the show. That is, I will say, I know in the show, the first episode, the very last letter they read is one of the real letters.
Okay.
And just for clarification too, I know you mentioned the case being ongoing. For clarification, that is the case with trying to find out what's going on versus there was a lawsuit that the Broaddus family filed against the previous owners that was thrown out.
Because apparently the previous owners were receiving letters too, but never disclosed that.
They didn't disclose it, and it was thrown out.
Right.
It was dismissed because the judge said that if they went to trial, then it would make it hard to draw a line on what people had to disclose and what they didn't have to disclose when selling a house, which makes sense because you shouldn't have to disclose your personal mail to somebody when selling a house. But also at the same time, I understand, like, if you're getting something to that degree, you might want to mention it.
Right. Also depends if they...
It's hard.
Also
it's hard to
depends
say
if
either
the
way.
previous family reported it or not. Because if they didn't report it, then they don't have to...
Yeah, I don't remember how they found out.
For
but
anything,
yeah,
then.
right. That's true. But yes, they know for a fact. I don't know how many letters the previous family received. I'm sure it was more than one, but they know for a fact there was at least one that they did receive. Which leads me to believe if the Broaddus family received multiple ones, then the previous family also received multiple ones.
Right. So, yeah, they bought the house, and then they start renovating it, and then that's when the letters start coming. The difference between real life and the TV show is in the TV show, they move in like 6 weeks later after they bought the house, and they start receiving the letters and yada, yada, yada. And there's only 2 kids, but in real life, they had 3. Real life, they never actually moved in. They kept renovating the house, and they were afraid to move in because of the damn letters.
Which I wouldn't, I would say I wouldn't either, like... especially when someone's bringing up your children.
Right.
Yeah,
and
you're not going to put your children in that position where you're going to be like...
And putting them in by name.
Right. Which I think is, to me, the part that, like, I find the most unsettling.
Well, yeah.
Is that, like, somehow someone's writing you these letters and they know your children's name, and they did find that with the envelopes. They did a DNA test on it because it was back when you still had to lick envelopes shut.
Well, this is 2015.
Well, still, like, that was a thing. Like,
well,
they made the adhesive one, but in 2015's, like, it was like they still did the ones you lick. But
you
it's
can do
like,
either one.
Now it's more common that you don't get that. Basically, is verification. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
It's more common that you don't. But
which also could include that maybe there's someone who's very much older and probably had envelopes for a long time.
Also, true. Also, they weren't very smart if they licked the envelope.
No, that's pretty dumb. I'm gonna send this anonymous letter, but I'll make sure my DNA gets all over it.
So, anyway, the DNA showed that it was most likely a woman. And they tested the DNA against all the female suspects, including Mrs. Broaddus, and it did not match. So I think it's weird that they knew all this information, but it wasn't anybody that was clearly, obviously tied, unless somebody wrote it and then, like, randomly walked up somebody on the street, like, can you lick my envelope?
Oh, man, that'd be weird.
But this was pre-COVID, so who knows?
So I don't remember. Were they handwritten or were they typed up?
They were typed up.
Okay.
So they couldn't do, like, handwriting analysis on them.
Okay. Probably an old typewriter too.
Yeah.
So it was like in the TV show, shows them like they get the first letter, and it's weird how they do it in the TV show because like multiple people are reading it all at once.
Right.
To kind of the TV show, obviously they never know. They never caught the person who did it. So the TV show does it in a way that it's like really like several people are reading it like kind of once or at different times reading like the same letter. So it's still kind of leaving it up in the air.
Yes. I think the TV show too is just, it's interesting. I get that they're trying to explore the different theories.
Right.
Because there's a bunch of theories on what happened and the case is unsolved, so we don't know. But
man, let's talk about the TV show for a second.
Yeah, let's because and I will say, I know you mentioned like to me that it should have been a movie, and I agree that, but I understand why Netflix was like, let's go the TV show route, because they've had a lot of success with it.
Right.
They have. I'm not gonna like downplay that. Netflix is really good at making their own original series. Outside of that, I will say I don't really use Netflix. They make that's the thing. They make really good original series, but then like everything else, I'm like, eh.
Well, like their miniseries, that's kind of their bread and butter. So of course they'd want to make this like 7 hours long. But
I mean, I'm not gonna shit on the people who made Stranger Things.
No,
like,
no,
it's amazing.
Show's awesome.
It's fantastic.
But this show, I don't know, man. Like on this show, everyone feels like a character of like not a real person. Like everyone is so stretched, so oddly, and performed so strangely that every single person on the show does not seem like they would exist in real life. Because everyone is just too extremely odd. And even the family itself, like I feel like no connection within that family whatsoever. It's like even The Conjuring, which, has a runtime of 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it is. Like you feel a connection with that family. Right. This is 7 episodes, and this family never feels like a family. It feels like it
doesn't. There were so many moments in the first episode alone where I was like, the husband/dad. I was like, this guy's a dick.
Yeah. It's just like I don't know about that. It's just like I just felt like there's no connection in this family.
But that's my point. Like it's like you almost like want shit to happen to this guy just because I'm like, he's an asshole. Right.
And it's like every single person, every character they introduced, it's kind of like, oh, maybe this is the person. Like that's what they're going for. They're trying to introduce every single person who could potentially be a suspect, to the point where everybody is such a suspect because everyone doesn't act like a normal human being. It's like it's such an odd show, and
it is very odd.
That is what pulled me out of it the entire time, because the acting is just so strange and all over the place, and it's just kind of like the great thing about whodunit is everyone acts so normal, and most of the times in whodunit, or everyone is kind of playing a character, but in this show, it's like
they're all the suspects are weird, and they could very much like
every single person on that show, it's like they could have a dead body in their basement. You'd be like, I believe that, because everybody's acting like a creep.
And they probably all do have dead bodies in their basements.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I like a good whodunit where like the twist is like the person is like that who did it is the person that's just like,
right.
Billy Bob Joe next door.
Yeah. Or even
who you see every day.
Even something like Clue, where they do like a whodunit, and everybody's kind of like wacky and playing a character, but it is a comedy. And even like something like Knives Out is also a comedy.
I love that movie so much. I know we're going to talk about that movie. I love that movie so much, not just because Chris Evans is in it, but the end, I genuinely did not see that one. I joked about it, and like halfway through the movie, I was like, I bet he did it. And then I'm not going to spoil, but I was like, well, that person did do it.
So going back to like the whodunit, but they're building it in like a suspenseful way that it just comes off so cheesy and cornball, where it's just like everything in that show feels forced and fake.
It's very much like all the characters in the show, like the family. The only believable that like, oh, these would be people in real life, I feel like, are the family.
Right.
Outside of that, it's like nobody's a believable real life character.
Where I think if everyone was playing, if they all had their characters being normal, and then every once in a while do like a weird, odd thing, then you'd be like, oh, well, mate, what's that all about? But like the neighbors who watch them like on the lawn chairs, like from the get go, they're introduced as kind of weird ass people.
Right.
And then you got the crazy neighbor lady who's yelling at the father for, the trying to cut down a tree and stuff, and
Right.
she's like screaming, and then you get
And
the
then
guy who's
the-
obsessed with the dumbbell, like
Right, and then there's the lady the realtor that sold them the house. Like, oh, she knows her, but then it's also like
and then
she does some questionable stuff.
yeah, and she
like,
starts
she's
acting like all quirky and
weird.
strange, and then they really
And then the
focus on
security kid's like obsessed with the daughter.
Yeah.
Obviously, like it's obviously an unhealthy obsession with her.
So-
and I'm like, what?
the show. Just I don't know. Yeah, so
And even there's the private eye that he hires. She's even like a
yeah,
wackadoodle and a half.
oh, and the cop is like totally Shooter McGavin. Like,
Yeah.
he's totally like
Yeah. Yeah.
worthless.
Yeah,
It's just
it's like what is even happening
like,
here?
You have this. You have a very thin true crime story.
Yeah.
Because really, it's just how like 5 to 7 letters were sent. They don't know who did it, and then Netflix was like, "Oh, this is."
This is a whole thing.
This is a whole thing. We should make a show off this. And it's like,
I also think like it's if you don't know, because they put at the beginning that it's based on a true events, but I think it's if you don't investigate the true events, it's kind of misleading.
yeah, because
As to what actually happened.
because they make it seem like everybody in that neighborhood was a complete like psycho.
Right, which it wasn't. Like in the reality of the situation, it wasn't like there was
yeah, it's
any
just-
obvious. It was just like, okay, we have suspects, but like there's no obvious. That makes the mystery just so weird. And there's no like they can't figure out what the motive was behind this.
Right.
Which I think is the interesting thing to talk about.
Right. Why would someone?
Why would someone do that? Was it a case? Because they mentioned the children.
Right.
Was it a case where it was a pedophile? Was it somebody that wasn't stable? Was it a cult?
Well, I think it was someone who's unstable. If
right.
they-
Exactly.
If they're real.
Was it a cult?
Let's talk about that theory for a second, because I did read some of that, and you mentioned it too. That
Right.
it could
Was
be
it- was it a cult?
cult.
What is a cult? Because they say they do it for so many years.
And they're like, hey, we do it.
and they use the term father, but in a cult, like
yeah,
that could
yeah.
be a very broad.
And it keeps talking about
term.
like young blood.
Yeah.
And you're filling the house.
Which I also feel like is a very cult friendly
right.
term.
Yeah, like the house has young blood in it, which
Right.
is good.
For me, I think that's one of the more believable things is that it's maybe and a cult.
Maybe
it
it's a
could
group.
be. Yeah, it could be something that's very small and not well known.
Right.
It could even be just like, to the unstable thing is a family who maybe
Right.
is not completely stable. And in those situations, it can even be a thing where it's one parent, two or both parents isn't stable, and they're sheltering the other family members, and the other
Right.
family's only getting the knowledge that they're fed, and it's not realistic, and then that turns into a thing. I mean, it could easily be.
that. The one thing I don't believe is the family did it themselves.
I don't. Yeah.
I don't see-
think.
They took almost $900,000 hit on the house,
Right.
or something.
And
like
that's
that.
the suspicion is that people think they did it themselves because they realized they were in a not good financial situation and that they were trying to save themselves. But I don't feel like if you're in that situation that's how you're gonna go about trying to get out of it.
And then
yeah, I
take
feel like
a massive hit on a house you just bought and
right.
sell within
like,
a year.
Oh yeah, like I
That's-
don't feel like
that's
making the
not-
house seem less
Sellable.
is how you're gonna approach that situation.
So, yeah, I don't believe in that. I don't think they did it to themselves. I just don't see why.
No, I don't.
Like there's if you're gonna make money, there's other ways you can make money.
Also, when they ran the DNA test for the envelope, they ran it against her, and it came back negative.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
So
her.
I just don't see why. That seems like a lot of
work, a lot of extra work to try and get out of
for something that possibly, and also all the money they spent on lawyers and private investigators, and then going to the police, and how much time and effort, and also all the publicity they've got. Like I
also feel like too, like even without the DNA on the envelope, I feel like it wouldn't have taken this long to tie it back to them. They would have found out somehow. They would have been.
The other thing too, it's like, okay, I'm gonna pull off this crazy scheme in hopes that this makes some money off later stuff like books and a TV deal. No.
Right, and also like
No one
with that
thinks
mentality
like
too,
that.
your parents, why your parents, you have children, you have 3 children, why would you be like, I'm gonna do this that could possibly make me money, but if it doesn't make money, it's definitely gonna harm my children.
Right. So this doesn't that theory
doesn't
to
seem
me
to me very
doesn't really
believable.
yeah. The other thing too is, so okay, it could be a neighbor or it could just be a prank.
Yeah, that's another one.
There's a big one, or it could just been a prank and someone was just watching the house. And I mean,
so they did
that's
find
someone who's has a lot of time.
the
on their
detective
hands.
in charge of it did find a woman sitting outside the house, and the woman said that she had a boyfriend who played like edgy video games, and his video game tag was The Watcher. And they tried to set up interviews with him twice, and he canceled both, and then shortly after that he moved out of state. So it could have just been some like young guy like trying to fuck with them. Like that's a believable theory to me, but it also like, I mean, I guess it would explain why the previous family got it too,
Right.
like because it's just some dude that's unstable and bored and.
Well, even the TV show is like, well, maybe it was someone who's put a bid on the house and didn't
Right,
get,
which
I mean,
don't believe that either. Like,
I mean,
why?
the TV show is designed in a way where literally anybody outside the 4 family members is like is the suspect.
Right.
It's so like,
if it's not them,
yeah,
it's not them. We're gonna tell you that. And also, like,
it's so bombastic about the way it goes around.
I
Like,
don't like
pointing
how
fingers.
they made it. I don't like how they made it like somebody was sneaking into the house too.
Yeah, because and it kills.
That's not. I
kills the
think I think it also like it kind of. Speaking of killed, it killed some of the mystery to the situation, because I think that's one of the big mysteries of the situation is like they weren't moved in yet. Like having the person be like they're breaking into the house like kills the mystery of who did it, because the part of the mystery to me that I find is very intriguing is the family never moved in.
No. Yeah.
And the person who's writing these letters, like it's if the family's not in there, they're not breaking into the house with the family being in there. So how do they know all this information?
Right.
Without the family moving, how are they getting this?
Well, damn.
Right. How are they getting the kid? Like, it's just, there's too much unexplained stuff to me.
That would be, to me, that would point a finger at like someone like a neighbor. Because you're going to hear like all the family.
There was a neighbor. There was a neighbor they suspected, but they also passed the DNA test on the envelope. They were like, it's not them, and they cleared them.
Right.
So it was very like, but there still is a suspicion that it is like it's a neighbor, which I think does make sense.
Because if it's a neighbor, like when you're outside, especially like, kids are playing, you're going to hear everybody's names if you hang out outside long enough, because everybody's going to be like, hey, Johnny, come inside.
But that would make sense if they moved in, but like they didn't.
They didn't move in.
They didn't move in. So how do you get that information?
No, you can always go up there and ask. Hey, I'm so-and-so. So you bought the house. Hey, I'm Johnny. Hey, this is
But again,
so-and-so.
I feel like they would, like, if they had a conversation with somebody and gave that information, they would like be like, oh, we talked to this person and we told them this. You should look into that person. I think that's what's very weird about it. Is there's no connection.
Maybe
where
they
they're
did.
Just like, and that person probably got cleared then.
I mean, they went to the police about this. They went to the police with all the letters, and there was investigations. The police they did do this in the show too. The police did start like coming, checking the house, making sure nothing weird was happening. And then, they did hire the PI as well in the show. It's like,
which brings me to my next point
played by a
about
total insane person. But
what makes me to my next point of why I find it intriguing to the next mystery is there's mention of the basement,
right?
And things going on in the house, and just like, is it something paranormal? Is there a paranormal tie to it? Which is also a suspicion that
think about that. From my point of view.
That is a suspicion. That's a theory that's what it is. There's some kind of paranormal tie to it.
I would say no.
Right.
Just
but that's a theory. I'm going to say that's a theory.
It's a theory, but just because of all the letters.
Not that I think there's ghost writing letters, but like.
I mean, there could be some kind of paranormal aspect to it, but I think that's stretching it.
Right,
I think it's more.
But I think it's an interesting, I think it's an interesting theory to explore. I think
Right.
people explore that theory because of mentions in the letters, and also, but we can't explain it. So here's this. But then you also wonder too, is like mentioning all the stuff of the house. Is it, was there some kind of foul play in the past in that house?
I mean, if anything's over 100 years old,
right?
Weird shit's gonna
like what's like is it? I don't know. It's just there's so much like
there's-
why are they? It's like
why
you're
is
not
this
just writing about the people, but why are you so interested in the house itself?
Why has this family been watching? Supposedly, this family been watching this
Right.
house for 110 years.
Why?
Like, why?
Why? And that's my big thing, because I don't find that far-fetched that that's true. I just there's a why. There's
Right.
got to be a why to why that's happening, and I'm sure there is. But like, the house is so old, so you're like, you don't know.
Right. So then they so after the letters, they went to the police. They finally decided to sell the damn house because they didn't want to move in. So and they also started renting it out. That was the other thing too. They started renting the house out.
The person too that sent the letters to them, they didn't start sending them until after the house was officially sold, which I think was very clever of them.
Right. Well,
and when we clarify too, when we say sent, I just want to clear that up too. They were not postmarked. They were just put in the mailbox.
Well, yeah.
So
I mean, whoever
they I don't think they explained that in the show. They were not postmarked. They were clearly set. They set in the mailbox. Which in real life, that's how it happened too. Which is what makes it very creepy. Like,
yeah. So whoever was doing it like
they're
if they're watching the house, clearly they're in
right.
Like they're not doing it from a drone.
Right.
At least not that we know of.
Not then anyway.
Like,
probably.
2015 drones.
Yeah, but they were a thing, but they weren't as like. I feel like they were common.
They're more common now, definitely. But
Also, I feel like
if you're like, you're gonna see a freaking drone.
If
flying.
you're using a typewriter to type a letter and you're licking envelopes, you probably aren't using a drone. You probably don't know what a drone is.
Maybe.
Or maybe you do. Maybe you're just trying to trick. I find that the more curious. I feel like if these people are smart enough to like, you can't trace these letters back to me. We didn't start them until the sale was final, so you can't back out. I feel like there was some logic to the envelope being licked shut.
Right.
That like I feel like they knew, and I feel like the person. It says it was a female because they did a DNA test. I feel like the person that licking it is probably not the same person that wrote it. That's my suspicion. That's my huge suspicion.
Well, that's going back to the weird couple in the lawn chairs,
right?
Watching the house at all times.
I don't feel like, and I don't know how you would just get somebody to lick your envelopes for you. But again, you never know. This was pre-COVID when people would still like, and I was because I was talking to this me and a friend were talking about this the other day. Like when people would do things like, you're out with one of like your girlfriends or something, you're like, can I borrow your chapstick? I can't find mine. You like no one does that now.
No,
borrow anybody's chapstick. What are you talking about?
Yeah, crazy.
It's so weird.
The other thing is like so this is not the first time people have sent weird letters. I mean, of course, with Zodiac.
Yeah.
It's like his were also but his were handwritten though. That was the big difference with Zodiac.
Which I'm not gonna get into that one. There's so many theories, and I watched so much of it, and like that's a whole rabbit hole to go down. But I will say after the
Zodiac's the Watcher. That's my theory.
That's
he moved from California, and then he moved.
It's like, and he couldn't stop. He couldn't completely stop. But he's like, I'm gonna do this just subtle thing just to get it out.
So he moves to he moves to a small suburb of New Jersey.
Gotta get this out. Gotta get it out. I'm not gonna murder anybody.
I'm surprised the TV show didn't get that far. With everybody in the world being a suspect.
But yeah, I mean. He was like, I'm not going to murder anybody yet. Maybe when they move in. And then they didn't move in. He was probably like, motherfucker.
But then also, in the 70s, there was the Circleville letters.
Yes.
Which they never caught that person too, but somebody was, and this is in Circleville, Ohio. Somebody
Which is
just,
like 45 minutes from here, about?
Yeah, roughly, yeah. Pumpkin show, which just ended. So
Yeah.
Well,
now you just the pumpkin show. It's a thing.
Circleville pumpkin show.
It's a big thing. It's a big deal. Just if you're not from Ohio, believe us.
But even actually, the letter started around the pumpkin show. That's when I read about it. It started around that time. But somebody in Circleville, Ohio, was sending out letters to all the different residents and very much pointing them out to like affairs, to violent assaults, to murder, to all these different things, and was pinpointing all these people doing all these horrible things, but they never came out on who was writing the letters. And they went on for years.
I think that one's actually kind of funny.
So, okay. So Zodiac goes from California to Ohio and then retires in New Jersey.
That one I do find very like baffling as well, as like how are you finding out all these things about people? Like, because it was very secretive stuff.
Little old church ladies who have nothing to do.
Probably.
I
would be interested to see that case and see who these people are that are being targeted, and are they within some kind of social circle like that.
Unsolved Mysteries did a episode on the Circleville letters.
That's why I remember this when you said it. I'm like, there was something on this I watched.
So that went on for like years, and that only gets a 45-minute episode on Unsolved, an hour-long episode on Unsolved Mysteries. But The Watcher gets a seven episode miniseries.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the Circleville letters went through an entire community. Like, I feel like there's way more you could do with that than stretching.
Just wait for it. It's coming.
It probably is now.
Right? Yeah.
I still like my theory that's the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, you think? Know that like he's dead now, though, right?
The Zodiac?
Yeah, it's been long enough that they're pretty sure they're dead. And I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole, but like there's
I don't know.
They have some pretty solid. It went from like we don't know to like now there's pretty solid evidence that it was like they've narrowed it down like to a few people. Like it's one of these people.
Maybe Zodiac will be a future episode because I'm endlessly fascinated.
I'm same.
So maybe Zodiac might be.
I know it's like more of like a true crime thing, kind of like this is too, but it's also
this is our first true crime episode,
right?
We usually dive into like
weird.
No,
it's not, because we did the one that was kind of true crimey when we did Malabar. That's related to a haunting, but like
that. See, to me, the Malabar Farm.
But that was more like I feel like I love that episode. I feel like that was more of like very like storytelling episode. That was such a fun episode to do, to just listen to. So if you haven't, I would say if you're listening to this episode and you have not listened to the Malabar episode with Mark Sebastian Jordan, listen to it. He is a fantastic storyteller, and it was great for us to be able to record that because we just got to listen to this guy just tell us all this interesting information. It was so fun to do.
Shameless self-promotion.
Anyway. Same for self-promotion, but also like legitimately I mean that. Like it was fantastic.
So back to The Watcher.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
We went on
that
a tangent.
That was a great episode.
Went from Zodiac to Malabar Farm.
And that was almost about a year ago we did that one.
So family sells the house. Takes a $900,000 hit on the house, which is not...
Sucks to be you.
That is not a small amount of change.
No.
Like that's a huge amount of money to take a hit on a house.
No, it's not.
And then in order to even sell the damn house, they have to have all the evidence and have all the potential buyers look at all the letters and all the evidence they collected from the police and the private investigations before anyone. So they have to show all this information before they even sell the house. Again, this is one of the reasons why I don't think they did.
Do we know who ended up buying the house?
All right, I have it right here. Who lives in the Watcher house now? After many attempts to sell the home, which were drawn out to several years, the Broadduses finally did so on July 1st, 2019. They sold the house to Andrew and Allison Carr for less than $1 million.
Who still live there, correct?
Yep, yeah, and they bought the house for $1.3 million. So they sold it actually at a $400,000 loss. When the sale closed, the Broadduses family asked their real estate attorney to share a note with the new owners. It read, "We wish you nothing but the peace and quiet that we once dreamed of in this house." And that's from The Cut, who I think was one of the people who kind of broke the story.
Wow.
So they took a $400,000 loss. A couple of reports I read it was a $900,000 loss. So I don't know.
It's also weird if somebody you're this dedicated to watching this house for so long, and then you just stop.
Well, now it's crazy because I can only imagine it's like a tourist destination,
right.
Which
is another reason why you probably would just be like, I need to stop.
Yeah,
but I also feel like that ties more evidence into it being the dude that was into the video games and then moved away because he moved away.
Right. So, or the person was old and died. It could also be
But it's in the family, so he would have somebody.
Oh yeah.
He would have some young blood.
Some young
blood.
I got some young blood. I'm gonna have him watch the house for me. Jesus. So anyway, that is the case of the Watcher. What do you think of all this? What's your thoughts on all this?
I think it's just very intriguing and captivating because it's you just don't know, and I think everybody just wants to figure out what the hell is going on here, what the hell and why. And I think that's the big question, the why. If there is somebody watching the house and they've been watching the house for so long, cool, I can believe that, but why? What happened in the house? Did something happen in the house? And you said the 1920s was when it was built.
Yeah.
It's that far back. Something could have happened that we don't know about. Right. There's all kinds of stuff you see
the place I moved into, we're recording right now. This is from literally was built in 1920, and like I said, we were in the coal storage room.
Right. I mean, and we as people, we do a lot of researching and discovering and digging up of other cultures and things, but we can learn about how they live, but we don't know the moments and events necessarily that happened if there is no physical evidence to them. And so I feel that's...
Or documentation.
Right, or documentation. So that's this thing. If something happened and there's no physical evidence left or documentation, then we don't know. And I believe that in the 1920s, if something happened and it caused... Or maybe there's not a cult anymore. Maybe then there was.
That could be true.
And that's the big thing about it. And maybe that's why they're mentioning... And also, P.S., I just had this thought. Maybe that's why they're referencing the interior of the house so much, because maybe there were practices in the cult. I feel like that would be a believable theory because around that time is when people were practicing a lot of supernatural things. They would have seances and things of that nature. That was about the time too, because Harry Houdini was famous around that time too for going out and disproving the seances and things. But there were a lot of groups gathering and doing a lot of things cult, and there were cult-like activities and things like that. So there very well could have been something at that time.
So you're more leaning into the cult theory.
Yes.
I think it's more just some
or maybe not even a big cult for anything, but something that ties into that.
A group.
Right. Or a group or something. And I feel like that would be very believable. Considering around that time frame, it's built in the 1920s. That was really... That was a really hot thing in the 1920s. And when I say that, I mean it was popular as in it was a very common practice. You and I are going to go we're going to go hang out and go see this local band play at a bar tonight. It was like that.
Yeah, it was very popular.
It was pretty popular.
I mean, it was common.
It was very common. It was a very common practice that not necessarily people did, but people would go to as well.
Yeah.
If people weren't practice, there were people that wouldn't practice, but they would go to them. There were events that were held.
People were curious by it.
Which, I mean, is fine. Like, I'm not, I'm not harping
not
on
like,
that at all.
It wasn't like it was more like a parlor trick thing.
Right, which is what he spent, he spent his time disbelieving. But I'm just saying, with that in mind, it very well could be that's why they're referencing the house so much, because who the fuck knows what happened in the house.
Could have been a caretaker. Someone who was actually the caretaker of the house, and then then his son was the caretaker of the house, and then the house didn't need a caretaker anymore because that's a thing of the past. So maybe the person still feels like, oh, that's my job, is to be the caretaker of the house. So I don't know. But
if there was a caretaker, I feel like that stopped being a thing so long ago that the person that was the caretaker probably wouldn't be alive anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This would be the offspring of that caretaker. Because he said his grandfather. They said grandfather watched it first, and then their father, and then now it's their job. So their father could have easily been the caretaker of the house, and then that job got eliminated. But they still feel like that's their job. Which is
cool, but that doesn't explain a lot of the verbiage they use.
No. But it's also if someone has, mental disabilities.
Right.
That could be, I mean, personally, obviously the person who wrote this isn't of exactly sound mind.
Correct.
So, I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys think about this whole thing?
I think my theory is one I just came up with, is pretty solid. Like, I know you're laughing, but I think it's a pretty solid theory. Like,
I mean, all theories
with the time period it was built, like...
I mean, all theories are solid because they're just that. They're just theories.
And it's not like it's a big town either.
Right.
So, I mean, if it was a very small town and they were doing something like that, it could have easily, and then maybe just it was a group and then somebody's family that was a high up in the group. Cause they always have just couldn't get over the fact that
I like the caretaker idea.
Maybe it's both.
Maybe it's both.
Maybe the caretaker wants to hold his seances and invite over his bestie, the Zodiac killer.
I was going to say, that's exactly it. So tying back into the Zodiac killer. I'm going to stand by the fact that the Zodiac killer was the Watcher.
And they want to have a seance party and they want to call up all the ghosts.
Right.
And
all right, so that's your stance that you're going with the cult.
Maybe not a cult, but some
cult-like group,
something that ties back to that, and that just would explain to me why there's so much mention of the interior of the house.
I'm telling you, Zodiac.
Both.
Zodiac joined a cult.
hey, that's when he did when he stopped killing. He was like,
he made a pit stop to Circleville.
I'm bored. I wrote letters to Circleville. I was a Zodiac. What else can I do before I die?
Right. Every unsolved mystery is now just the Zodiac.
It's the Zodiac. Don't even watch the show Unsolved Mysteries anymore. It's the Zodiac.
It doesn't even matter if time frames match up or whatever. It's just Zodiac.
The Zodiac, because the Zodiac. So the Zodiac, it doesn't matter the time frame because the Zodiac is also the Highlander.
Okay, I think on that note, what do you guys?
There can be only one Zodiac.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Okay,
that's what the Highlander is. That phrase, "There can be only one." They never finished it. It's "There can be only one Zodiac."
Wow. Okay. On that,
I've solved all the mysteries of the universe.
On that note, what do you guys?
You're welcome.
What do you guys think? If you're watching it on YouTube, you can always leave it in a comment section below. Let us know there. You can always send us an email, info@thespookydoor.com, or on all our social medias. Everything is just at the Spooky Door. Let us know what you think. What's your guys' take on this whole thing? We're really curious to hear other theories beyond just Zodiac being the Highlander. Also on top of that, we do also sell merch. You can go to spookydoor.com and get any of our merch on there. You have any last things you want to say?
Yeah, also if you're listening to us on a platform such as
all of them.
Not all of them, but there are certain platforms such as Spotify, and if you're listening to us on iTunes, you can rate us. So please give us an amazing rating, and if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe our videos. All of them. Like all of them.
There you go.
And subscribe to our channel.
yeah, now we're posting more stuff up there too, like top 10 videos, and now we have a new series called Real or Fake, where we look at videos from across the internet, trying to decipher if they're real or fake or not.
And various other just ideas that we have that we hope to create.
Yep.
For your viewing pleasure and entertainment.
So once again, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Ashley.
And journey with us next time through the spooky door.
Happy Halloween!
Yep.